Asivusele sinimukele lamhla ekseni sibangakhulu ukuthi nivuke nathi nanamuhla kungilesibili dine enyangeni yaBhimbidvwane umnyaka ngo2022 asinivusele sinimukele sibangakhulu ukuthi nanamuhla nivuke nathi nekuthi umdalo usigcinile sathe sabona umnyaka lomusha asisibuke nangumbiko losuka eTekule Tempilo. Elangeni letolo kuhlole abantu labangu 870 kwatholakala ukuthi labangu 155 banomkhuhlane COVID-19 itolo sishiye abantu labasihlanu kanti labasesibhedlela labelashwako bangu 105 bese kuthi lasebaluleme sebangu 795 kanti selo wabhethuka lomkhuhlane lasebawutholile bangu 66441 bese kuthi sebashile bangu 1315 asebagomeka lokuphelele sebangu 296214 lesekwenda 25.3% we total population. Sabuka donati indzaba tomkhuhlane COVID-19 hulumende eveni la seBotswana sobikeke ukuthi imengameli Masisi uteste positive umkhuhlane COVID-19 kanti ke lokhu ukubone ngesikhathi kwendiwa routine check up kokuhlola ukuthi ingabe tisebenzi tahulumende dona time kanjani tindzabeni zeTempilo kuyabikwa ke ukuthi imengameli Masisi bekede ema symptoms kodwa lokuthi routine check up utholakele ukuthi u positive so isolation kwanyalo hulumende uvetile ukuthi deputy president nguye lotawubuka ama responsibilities ayemengameli asesekwa isolation kanti kodwa ubuyela emsebenzini wakhe emengameli nasekaluleme ngalokuphelele kanti evenila seMauritius khona tisebenzita seairport ditfolela uswane lolitsanza kubelekwa lilahlwe emgcomeni endizeni kanti ke na kwendiwa liphenyo kuyatholakala ukuthi lo mfana ulahlwe ngusisi loneminyaka lengemashumi lamabili 20 kodwa ke amaphoyisa ambophile uqale waphika wathi yena akakase abeleke samfana kodwa emva kweliphenyo kutholakala ukuthi nguye lo sisi lolichamikisa eveni laseMadagascar ufike washiya lo mfana khona lapha eMtasbenini kanti ke bemthetho bamphuthumisa esibhedlela kuyomhlola ukuthi engabe uyaphila yini vele kulandzela simo lalahlwe kiso lesikhathi asibathole emakethe sitabuya sibuke tindzaba tetfu.
Pay your TV license quickly and easily with MTN Momo. Simply dial *007 *3 hash and select option 8 for TV license. Enter your national ID number as your reference and the amount you wish to pay. Then enter your PIN to confirm your payment. Once your payment has been made, you'll receive a confirmation SMS of your payment. If you're a first-time payer, you get another SMS for your TV license. So legalize your entertainment from the comfort of your home. Pay your TV license the easy and convenient way with MTN Momo.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
I do the most.
Watch local TV on the go with the Eswatini TV app for only 20 emalangeni per month. Do the most with Eswatini TV app. Download from Google Play Store or App Store.
We're good together. Everywhere you go, MTN.
Asifenze sinemukele Kusile breakfast show sitawubuka tindzaba tetfu. La cobetelako sekachubekile ensimini yebukhosi imfabantu kulandzela kucala kwemsebenzi webukhosi evikini lelengcile.
Ngemuva kwekwenca kwempelasonto yekungena eminyakeni lomusha wa 2022 la cobetela kwachubekile aphuma ngetinkhani kuyawuhlakula emasimi ebukhosi. Ngemsumbuluko ekseni emajaha avukela insimini yebukhosi imfabantu kulandzela i-order yesilo semhlaba leyethulwa yindvuna evikini leliphelile. lacwebetela kusekasemfa abantu nje acala ukuhlakula ngemsombuluko evikini ledlulile njengoba acala ngekubungula esihlabeni emabutho abese achubekela esigodlweni engabezweni kuyawuchitha injobo ngemuva kwekuhlakula kuleli langa etinzabeni kubika Pholile Maziyana Thabiso Dlamini esigodlweni engabezweni.
Ndvunankulu Cleopas Dlamini uthi tinswela boya letishise ligalaji lahulumende eMbabane titalitfola lolumandi ngalesendo sato. Dlamini uvete lokhu ngesikhathi yawubuka umonakalo lowendeke nakusha leli galaji kusa kwangemsombuluko. Kulo monakalo kushe impahla yahulumende lefaka ekhatsi timoto, titududu nemaphepha lamcoka kulokunye.
Kube nemlilo egaraji lelikhulu lahulumende eCTA eMbabane lapho kushe khona timoto, titududu, ikhumbi nemaphepha yokusebenza kulokunye. Labatiko babekisa ukuthi lo mlilo ucale kubonakala ngensimbi yesibili ebusuku. Ndvunankulu Cleopas Dlamini ahambisana neliphini landvunankulu lelingithemba masuku bayile kuyobona lo monakalo washo uDlamini ukuthi umthetho utayithatha indzawo yawo kulabende lobucala.
Umonakalo sesiubonile nani senubonile mubi impela kepha ke kufuna kubambi kakhulu kunaloko. Siyabonga ukuthi basheshe bakhona uvimba becisha umlilo noma kunjalo asuthathele phasi siyawubona ukuthi mubi kakhulu. Kunenge nje ngete wathi ukuthi utawuthi kuphi ngikuphi futhi ngeke ugeneralize ngoba ama-causes ama possible causes aloku manengi kepha nje siyasho ukuthi emaphoyisa asemva kwabo labalabende lokho nje utawubonakala lo yawutholakala ukuthi kumbe uyasoleka noma ube nesandla kuloko awudaba likhulu kakhulu sijeziso sakhona kepha nje umonakalo ubengathi makhata yebo kona khona imoto elimele lesingeke sisho ukuthi umonakalo omncane kepha inkulu kakhulu letisenzile.
Tekuphepha nato atisiko letsezingeni lelisetulu kuleli garaji lahulumende lokungenda tinswela boya titendele matsanza nje.
Sekufuneka ukuthi kokucala nje kufuneka ukuthi kube ne-good lighting system kukhanye la ukuthi ba kufana nasemini uthi uhamba lapha sibe sikhona ukubona kutawulungiswa ke lokho sesikhulumile nabo tatholakala ama-solar lights atawukhanyisa yonke nje imoto lelana kube ungathola inyalizi lapha. Kwesibili kufuna kubhifaphe le-security nawuthi buka nje leti moto leti la ngeke umuntu umunyathi igazi nababili futhi ngeke bathi igazi kufuneka nje cishe team of 3-4 people letawuhamba around ebusuku bonke kodwa kumcoka kakhulu lokho sikufuna kukhanye kungabi semnyameni kukhanyisa kakaduli kangaka imoto yinye nje ngithenga ama-lights line up ukuthi kukhanyiswe lana sawenda sitawutama kwenda lokho ngaphandle nje ukuthi kuhambe isikhathi leside kakhulu mhlawumbe kutawuthi kuyoshaya bo-April kuyabe sekukhanya lana.
Nakuhlanganiswa lo mbiko bekusede loboshiwe ngaloku lwakwendekile. Ndzabeni Eswatini TV kubika Themkosi Mavimbela ngina Fortune Dlangamandla eMbabane.
Kanti ngakulokunye indvuna yetemsebenzi lemikhulu nekutfutsa Chief Ndlalihlaza Ndwande ithi kukhona lokushaya emanti ngalokusha kwaleli galaji lelikhulu lahulumende. Lokho kwenza ukuthi leli galaji kuselishile ngemsombuluko ekuseni.
Kuvele ube mkhulu kakhulu timoto letishile ngicabanga ukuthi tiya kuletine inhlanhla ikhona lebeyidutane leseyisha lebesemele ukuthi iregister yona ke ishela ilambu la ngemuva nje kuphela lokutawulungiseka sicabanga ukuthi mhlambe umonakalo bodaba mkhulu kakhulu kepha ke siyeva ukuthi bete cisha umlilo baphuthumile basonzela basibambisa kubhula lomlilo nalena ke lapha emva kwami kuyabonakala ukuthi beyibhakela ngaphandle yona nayo ke ishele khona la ikhona khona uma ukubuka vele akusiso sehlakalo kube into yangenhloso nje bantu labasukumile baba nenhloso ukuthi batowenda lo monakalo lo leswekhutawo kakhulu esiveni ngoba lokusha kwalempahla ngalendlela lena angiboni ukuthi kukhona lokumsitako ukhona lapha lokumisa embili kusiyisa emuva nje silive uma ubuka le mpahla lese ilimele enyalo leshile timoto tidulile uhulumende usebenza ngato vele nje kulukhuni kepha ke namhla sivuka lesikhuluma ngato setivele tishile siyawekhutha leyo moya kakhulu measures singasho vele ukuthi cha akasiwo lasesimeni lesikahle ngoba luthango lethu la sithi vele selugugile luyafuna ukuthi lulungiswe kepha tonke leto tinto letilandzela ukuthi kuyakhonakala yini ngalomnyaka ukuthi kuprovide ibudget yokukwenda lokho so kafisha nje vele inkinga ye-security sinayo ngoba lo luthango vele luyaceka ungakhanza ukuthi umuntu uyakhona kugaina access nje ngaleto tindlela litiko vele kuseluhlelweni lalo ukuthi lulungiswe lo luthango lolutawuvikela le mpahla la ngekhathi.
Umphathi wamaphoyisa William Dlamini uthi lo tawuta nelwati lokuthi ngubani loshisa igalaji lelikhulu lahulumende eMbabane utawutfola sizumbulu semali. Dlamini uthi le mali itawutfolakala asekangene enkantolo umsolwa. Dlamini akaveli ukuthi ngumalini le mali letawuniketwa lotawusita emaphoyisa ekutfoleni labasolwa.
Sibambisene sive laba labende lo monakalo sagcina sibatholile bekunene sanda semthetho sibagole babuya ngasemthethweni yiko nje silale emthandazweni ukuthi lona lo wende lo monakalo akabuye nganeno wekunene akavele aboshwe atohlangana nemthetho bekuyobuka lo monakalo njalo siubona bekunene mkhulu letinye leta imoto etishile imoto etingakaze tisebenze letisha brand new kwethusa ke bekunene ukuthi imoto umbuso uthengele hulumende timoto ukuthi hulumende achubeka asebende amikise ema services esivele kepha mase kunjena vele lokho lo muntu lo wende lokho akusiso sitha sabantu sitha selive bekunena sibambisane abuye nganeno laba labende lokhu nje abekho etigangeni base tisivele munye walabo lanabo uyati ukuthi kwendiwe ngubani kubambisana nesivele ukuthi asheshe asichwebe ukuthi awu bekunene nangu phela lo wende lomhlolo sisasho njalo bekunene makusuka lo nyaka lophelile sibeke imali sathi lone lwati ngekubulinya kwetimpahla noma timpahla taluphi uhlobo timpahla tesive timpahla tahulumende timpahla tama-organizations akete asilume indlela utawugcina yena ligama lakhe singalikhiphe esiveni kepha na utasithola sizumbulu sakhe uma shothi lona lathi nguye uvela enkantolo wavela nje enkantolo utasithola sizumbulu sakhe sisekhona sozumbulu bekunene asifuni usisho ukuthi singimalini kedwa nje sisekhona lone lwati nalona loyendela lona nje umonakalo abete bekunene babhalise basho ukuthi awu mina ngithi ngubani tabe siyakhulunyiswa ukunene kuyabonakala ukuthi ngabe nguye yini umikiswe enkantolo lona lositshelile osuma indlebe athole sozumbulu sakhe solo sisekhona bekunene.
Umcondzisi wetempilo Dr. Vusi Makakula uthi akusilo nani liciniso ukuthi abanakwa bomake labatawubeleka esibhedlela sahulumende eMankayane njengekusho kwemibiko lovele etinkundleni tekuchumana. Makakula uthi lesibhedlela senda konke lokusemandleni ukuthi bomake labamele kubeleka bayahlolwa ngaso sonke isikhathi kuqinisekisa ukuthi bayaphepha kanye nebantfu babo.
Umcondzisi wetempilo Dr. Vusi Makakula uthi hulumende wenda sonke isiciniseko sokuthi bomake labete kutawubeleka esibhedlela lesikhulu sahulumende eMankayane bayanakekeleka. Makakula ukhulumela ukulandzela umbiko lokhishwa ngilokusolakala kwekuthi sisebenza kulesibhedlela etinkundleni tekuchumana kwekuthi indzawo labalinza kuyo labomake bangikayi kuyawubeleka ayikho esimeni lesikahle.
Nabafika la lena waiting hard sathola tu tinini te leave sibe nayo nayi ikhona iphelele siyibonile inawo ngisho nama-air conditioner inayo nemibhede nafika ungafika esibhedlela nje angena esibhedlela kuyathatha uyaregister umuntu ukuthatha ama-records akhe kwadiwe ukuthi nami uzokhona laba-ke abakade akusho ukuthi sengema-patients akusho ukuthi laba sebavele sebete esibhedlela bagula banjani kwehlukile lokulaliswa ngale emawadini nangala ngoba lapho kusukubantu ukhanza they are waiting for there may be several reasons nje lamanye nje kakhulu ukhanza ukuthi umuntu lokhanza kumbe anticipate ukuthi abane kulukhulu ambulance ngesikhathi and all bachuze lokho ukuthi bethele nakafika vele utawubhaliswa and nasabhalisiwe uendicted ukuthi abone bayabona every day and they're within walking distance yokuthi bafike bawendiwa lokusitwa nangabe sekukhona lokumphathama sokumphangisa lokuthi sibatiwa phela ngoba badla khona naso isitawolo wathi unayo list yokuthi kunabani lapha wakabani unamba komnyaka donke le information le necessary kumbona bese ke every day ekseni bambona bamcheck apopolo kude nje lo ukuthi abadiwa bafike bahlale nje bangabukwanga umuntu ngito confirm lokho ngoba ngiyadi lokuthi kunjalo but sto confirm lokho nje sikhanzile ke ngiko ke sijabulile lokusinani nibe khona.
Magagula uthi uhulumende uyaqinisekisa ukuthi tonke tibhedlela kuleli tiyabanakekela bomake labede kutawubeleka. Etindzabeni teSwatini TV kubika Nelson ngamandla kunambongwa Dube Mangayane.
Liteko letempilo lithi kungabi khona kwaleminye imithi namaphilisi etibhedlela kuleli akusho ukuthi uhulumende usuke ayekelele sive kepha kulesinye isikhathi isuke ithengiwe kepha iphute kufika. Lokho kuvetwa kumcondzisi wetempilo Dr. Vusi Magagula ngesikhathi yachaza ukuthi kwendiwa yini ukuthi itibhedlela tishode ngaleminye imithi noma emaphilisi. Magagula ebekhuluma ngesikhathi yavakashele esibhedlela saseMankayane.
Ngaphambilini kuke kwaba nemibiko yekuthi tibhedlela tibabete kahle leminye imithi nemaphilisi. Umcondzisi wetempilo Dr. Vusi Magagula uthi nanoma ebukhona bulukhuni endzabeni yemithi nemaphilisi kepha lokhu akusho kwekuthi uhulumende kude la kwendako.
Khona uhulumende ugijima abusuku bonke nemini endasholo ukuthi into tibe khona. Kuba khona nje ngoba ngisho nje manje sika problems la yabe khona akhanze ukuthi asisakhona. Lokho kufanele siku-admit lokuthi economists I always quote this ngoba in my economy class that was the first word la isho professor of economics what resources are not enough to run around to meet all needs akwendeke lokuthi run around meet onke ama-needs kuyendeka ke vele ukuthi sisiyashoda ke because of that sound one way or the other kodwa ke kuyaye kutanya ngayo kusemandleni ethu okonke uhulumende ukuthi sitame ukuthi sithole ngokulukhuni ukuthi ngathi khona imithi noma kude ikhona sibhedlela sikhona naso nasingabuka ama statistics nje lapha lebasitakele eMankayane nje ngisanje ngibona nje lokuthi nje ibelekise most eMankayane.
Magagula uthi siva sikuconze ukuthi uhulumende uhlala njalo awakhathalela eMaswati futhi utihambisa embili tempilo. Etindzabeni teSwatini TV kubika Nelson ngamandla kunambongwa Dube Mangayane.
Lobukela uhlelo lwamaphilisi ekuthinzibalisa legciwane HIV kanye netindzaba temkhuhlane COVID-19 Dr. Advocate Dlamini uthi tintsatfu futhi inhlobo tebantfu lababonakala basishiya kakhulu kulesigaba sesine sekucubuka kwe-COVID-19. Dlamini uthi ngulabo labangakajovi labanetifo letingathelelani kanye netifo letithelelwanako.
Uyachubeka umkhuhlane iCovid-19 losacubuke kwesine kuleli ngekuthatha imiphefumulo yeMaswati. Lobukelihlelo lwamaphilisi okuthinzibalisa ligciwane le-HIV kanye netindzaba temkhuhlane iCovid-19 etiko letempilo Dr. Advocate Dlamini uchaza ngetinhlobo talabo lababonakala ababulawa ngulomkhuhlane kulesigaba sesine.
eMaswati lasishiya kulamalanga lavelayo nje nangabuka nje lo munye utholakala ukuthi unemkhuhlane lesibita nge-cryptococcal infection shokuthi is an advanced stage of HIV emtimbeni sikufaka under that kokuthi basishiya kulamalanga umuntu angagcizelela ukuthi nasesikhathi singisa COVID le mikhuhlane leminye letifo sithe lesiphila nato seloku sitingoti ngoba tenda umtimba ube intekenteke ngamasotsha empilo, compromise immune system. So umuntu akagcizelele emaswatini ngokuthi inzabe yokucala labo lekubonakala ukuthi baphila netifo sithe emtimbeni labadzala, sigcizela ukuthi abahambisane netiyaleto tabodokotela ngokuthi banake ishukela wabo, banake i-BP yabo, bese emva kwaloko sebajova ngetigaba uhulumende latibekile, ngetindlela uhulumende latibekile, bese sesikhulumisa indzaba yekujova ngokuthi emaswati akisi selokhu siyacela siyakhusata ngokuthi avele etiteshini tekujova. Imijovo uhulumende unayo, bathatha imijovo ngoba ngiyona ndlela lengcono nyalo COVID-19 ukuthi lo lojovile nakalo COVID angakuphola kodwa kuba ngoti makhada.
Dlamini uxwayise eMaswati ukuthi angalithatheli phasi ihlobo lomkhuhlane lwathiwa nge-Omicron ngoba nalo luyabulala.
Omicron akasiko lula kwengcala labanye bo Delta nabo Alpha nabo banibani. Ngisho ngani ukuthi kulabanye nakalo kubonakala ukuthi uveta mild symptoms kulabanye bantu, but kulabanye basishiya. So ayisindwe gembula ngempilo yakho ungumuntu ngokuthi utathi Omicron ungcono, so ungalanze indlela edokotela letempilo uthathe ama mask washe tandla ungavaccinate. So akusindwe ekudlala, akusindwe ekriska. Maswati sishinja kamthathe COVID-19 Omicron fana nato tonke letigaba letinye ta COVID-19 sibe nathi tiveni.
Nasilala ngelisondo litiko letempilo likhipha umbiko lothi bathi inkulungwane nemakhulu amathathu nelishumi bantu lesebabuloye ngilomkhuhlane kuleli kani bangemashumi lamabili nesihlanu nakuthathu ekhulwini bantu lesebajovele lomkhuhlane kuleli. Tindzabeni Eswatini TV kubika Fortune Dlangamandla. Nginathemba inkosi Mavimbela sisembabane.
Labambe kuba umphathi wedolobha laseMangayane ekhanyisile mamba uthile lidolobha lisemkhankasweni wekwakha imigwaco lemibili letawubita imali lelinganiselwa ku-3 million amalangeni kude kuthuthuke impilo yesive saleli dolobha. Mamba uvete lokhu ngesikhathi yachaza ngemisebenzi lelibuke kuyenda leli dolobha kulomnyaka.
Unyakeni lophelile emadolobha ahlangana nelitiko letindlu nekutfutfukiswa kwawo lapho khona yethula umkhombandlela wekusebenta kwawo. Lobambe kuba ngumphathi welidolobha laseMangayane ekhanyisile mamba uthi umsebenzi sewuvele utawucala kuleli dolobha.
Silidolobha laseMangayane solo sisebenzisa umgubudla wethu IDP yethu lephela 2030 lekhulumisa ikakhulu i-infrastructure. So for the year 2022 sesivele si engage i-contractor leta si-designela. Sinemigwaco lemibili lesitawuyenda leng approximately 100 meters each. Lo munye uqhamuka eholeni uphumela la kumgwaco wethu lokuchamukela kathuthuka ungene ebus rank. Sitawu upgrade siufake itar. Umgwaco umunye iyombili itas costa approximately 3 million. And sifisile ke neku khanyisa lidolobha lethu. We are hoping to have 2 high mast lesibheke ukuthi atawu improve i-safety and security etakhamuti edolobheni laseMangayane. Lemigwaco lemibili munye utawungena extension 2 la sinema resident lamanyenti sesihlushwe kakhulu storm water, so lo mgwaco utasisita ku drainage uphindze usisite nekuthi ama resident akhone ku accessa easily ema plots abo. Hopefully by the end of March stabe sesicalile i-contractor on site. Also lesikwendako sesinayo lo sandela i-town planning scheme. Masinyane nje utawube acetsa sesi residents amangayane batowati lokuthi kulomgubudla wethu wekudevelopa our town sitawuhamba sibheke phi kuze sibambisane.
Mamba uthi lokunye labafise kukwenda kuleli dolobha kuhlanyela tihlahla letingu-500 kuqinisekisa kwekuthi imvelo ayinyukubeteki. Etindzabeni Eswatini TV kubika Nelson Dlangamandla nginambongwa Dube eMangayane.
Inhlangano ledlalisa imidlalo ye-Premier League seyibonge emacembu ngekuyihlonipha ekutheni badlale imidlalo yabo nakulesikhathi semaholide. Lephambilini bekuye kuthathwe likhefu. Lobuke kusebenta kwalenhlangano Petros Vilakati uthi imidlalo ihambe kahle ngaphandle kokuphathamiseka.
Imidlalo yePremier League yathatha isinqumo sokuchubeka nemidlalo yayo kulesikhathi semaholide lekuyintfo lengakavami kanti lokho yakwenda ngekuthi ithi ibamba isikhathi lebe sevele sidliwe umkhuhlane we-COVID-19 njalo imidlalo beyihle imiswa. Lokhu kwekusebenta kwelihhovisi lelenhlangano Petros Vilakazi uthi le midlalo ihambe kahle kanti babonga emacembu ngekubahlonipha.
Amacembu ethu asihloniphile imidlalo yethu cishe yonke lebe siyifakile kulamalanga lawa kumbe lesijwayele ukuthi kuba ngemaholide akhisimisi ikhonile ukuthi idlale kutoto timbili tigaba ku-first division nakuye-Premier League. Idlale kahle imidlalo yethu amabhodi ethu abuyile kithi lokukhombile ukuthi cishe kumbe ama-official lebe siwathumile ukuthi ayodlala noma lebe siwathumele ukuthi ayodlalisa imidlalo ayidlalise kahle cishe yonke imidlalo yethu. Kube bede nje umdlalo lesingathi kumbe kube netingcinamba wagcina sewumile wangadlali idlale cishe yonke naledlalile emkhatsini wakhisimusi kanye naye New Year idlale kahle nayo ledlale nga-New Year idlale kahle sithi asendlulise nje kubonga kakhulu kuwo emacembu siyathi kulesikhathi lesi ayakhulule badlali kwekuthi kumbe nabo bawubona imindeni yabo kepha-ke babe nesikhathi lesincane ukuthi bangabakhulula siyabonga lokho ukuthi sibambisane nabo.
Le midlalo ibeke nemiphumela ethusela abaningi lapho khona kule midlalo ledlalwa eminyakeni lomusha iMoreno Pirates ishaya iqembu leRoyal Leopards iSwallows yona yakhala phansi kuRangers kanti amacembu iMbabane Highlanders kanye neManzini Wanderers bakhonile-ke kuba nemaholide lamnanzi njengalokhu bakhonile kunqoba imidlalo yawo emibili abayidlalile kanti-ke nayo iBuffalo seyibuyile idlala kahle njengalokhu ishaya ivovovo ngeligoli linye ecanzeni. Lebekele umsakazo we-Eswatini TV kutemidlalo ngiphathiswa Msibi eMbabane.
Aletote imidlalo siyatephetha tinza batetfu asibahlele timakethe sitawubuya sibukele tolo thamba imbili kulamanye emave.
Busiseka uvuseleleke wakheke emoyeni ngemculo wetenkolo bahlabeleli balapha eSwatini. Basakhula emculweni wetenkolo bahlabela bukhoma lapha eSwatini. Siphinde sixoxisane kabanti ngalaba kwentako emsebentini wabo wekuhlabelela igospel konke kungidinisa simakathe. Ungaphuthelwa ngomculo wegospel khona lapha eSwatini TV. Praise to God be the glory.
Brains on the Go Season 10 is back on your screens with a new presenter and a new host. This season, the quiz show is in the Luwombo region where we will meet 15 students from 15 different schools.
Welcome back. Solo bukela hlelo Kusile Breakfast Show kulesikhathi sitawubukela tolo thamba imbili kulamanye emave. Dr. Fauci eveni lasemelika uthi nanoma imibiko ye-COVID-19 ibonakala yenyuka ikakhulukazi luhlobo lwe-Omicron variant kukhona lisekhona lithemba.
It's an unprecedented uptick. The United States is weathering the worst surge of coronavirus cases since the start of the pandemic, as the Omicron variant sweeps across the country.
Well, we are definitely in the middle of a very severe surge and uptick in cases. If you look at the upstick, it is actually almost a vertical increase. We're now at an average of about 400,000 cases per day.
In the past 2 weeks, Washington, D.C. has seen a nearly 500% jump in new cases. Florida 700 and Puerto Rico a 900% increase in new infections. Such figures could soon get worse, with holiday cases still coming in. Some 60% of Americans are considered fully vaccinated, but only a third of them have received a booster, increasing the risk of breakthrough cases. For now, hospitalizations are up around 30% nationwide. But the U.S.'s top infectious disease expert said the surge will, in the coming weeks, be a trying test for hospitals, even if Omicron may potentially be a less severe, albeit more contagious, strain.
When you have multifold more people getting infected, the net amount is you're still going to get a lot of people that are going to be needing hospitalization. And that's the reason why we're concerned about stressing and straining the hospital system.
The skyrocketing number of ill has already wreaked havoc on travel. Over 2,000 flights were canceled Sunday in the United States due to sick airline personnel and to bad weather.
Kanti kuphetfuka kwehlobo lolusha lomkhuhlane Omicron variant kuphatamise tinhlelo letiningi ikakhulukazi tinhlelo tebantfu tekuvakashela lamanye emave maholide nyalo ngemaholide aKhisimusi kanye nekuvulwa kwetikolwa.
More than 9,200 U.S. domestic and international flights were delayed or canceled on New Year's Day due to bad weather and surging cases of the Omicron variant of the coronavirus. That's according to the flight tracking website flightaware.com. By Sunday, another 2,200 flights met the same fate. Chicago's O'Hare Airport was packed.
Last year, I was traveling, there was no one here, which was kind of eerie. So I like to see the people, but this is a lot of people.
While the Omicron variant appears less likely to cause severe illness, U.S. President Joe Biden's chief medical advisor, Dr. Anthony Fauci, warned spiking infections threaten the entire healthcare system.
Even if you have a less of a percentage of severity, when you have multifold more people getting infected, the net amount is you're still going to get a lot of people that are going to be needing hospitalization. And that's the reason why we're concerned about stressing and straining the hospital system.
As school children in the U.S. return to classes this week, Fauci's message remains clear.
I plead with parents to please seriously consider vaccinating your children, wearing masks in the school setting, doing test-to-stay approaches when children get infected. I think all of those things put together, it's safe enough to get those kids back to school.
New York City's new mayor, Eric Adams, who was sworn in on Saturday, tells ABC's This Week that the nation's biggest city is ready for school to restart.
We're going to create a safe environment with testing. We're going to identify the children that are exposed. We're going to remove them from that environment. The numbers show the mere fact that a child is exposed in a classroom does not mean that an entire classroom is exposed.
Adams takes office as New York City grapples with record numbers of cases driven by the Omicron variant. Classes resume Monday there and around the country.
Hulumende welive lase-France naye sowuqinise imigomo yekulwa nekwanza kwemkhuhlane COVID-19 ikakhulu njengoba tikolwa setivele tivulwe ngemsombuluko kulela live.
Restrictions tightened once again. On Monday, new rules come into force in French schools. Children who are contact cases can return to class with a negative PCR or rapid antigen test, but they must repeat the tests on day 2 and day 4. Parents will be able to use home test kits to meet the requirements.
C'est la situation qui veut ça et on est obligé de faire avec.
Bon, moi, je suis pas très pour que les enfants soient vaccinés, donc tant qu'on peut les faire tester et procéder de cette manière-là, ça me va bien.
Masks will also become mandatory for children over 6 years of age. Stricter rules also in the public transport sector. Face coverings can no longer be removed and eating and drinking has been banned. The rules have left some baffled.
Moi, je fais un voyage qui dure 9 heures. Je me vois pas trop ne rien manger pendant 9 heures. Je suis contente d'être partie aujourd'hui et pas demain.
In the entertainment industry, new regulations have limited the amount of indoor spectators to 2,000.
Nous avons pu ajouter des séances, prévenir le public par interne, par nos réseaux sociaux, et les gens se réinscrivaient sur les nouvelles séances. Finalement, ça s'est passé sans heurts.
Public attendance at outdoor events, like football matches, will be capped at 5,000 spectators.
Kanti indvunankhulu welive lase-Israel yena somemetele ukuthi bantfu labadzala labaneminyaka lengetulu kwa-60 kanye nebetemphilo batawutfola i-4th dose ye-vaccine.
Just days after it began vaccinating the immune-compromised and those in care homes, Israel has opened up a 4th dose of coronavirus vaccines on a wider front.
Israel started preparing for Omicron early on. This bought us time, which we're using to our advantage. Israel will also begin administering the 4th vaccine to all Israelis aged 60 and above, as well as our wonderful medical workers, 4 months after they've received their last dose.
Prime Minister Naftali Bennett referred to the move as a new layer of defense. Israel's been on the cutting edge of fighting the coronavirus throughout the pandemic and is ahead of most other nations when it comes to vaccinating its population. It gained early access to the Pfizer-BioNTech jab after agreeing to share data with the firm. With the Omicron variant surging globally and plunging the world into a 5th wave of infections higher than anything seen before, many countries are relying on tightening restrictions and watching Israel carefully for signs of how effective its moves for a 4th dose will be. The nation has other means at its disposal too. It's also approved antiviral pills from both Pfizer and Merck for use on COVID patients.
Sibeleveni laseMelika mengameli Joe Biden unconyiwe waphinze wagcekwa ngendlela layisebente ngayo indzaba yekulwa nemkhuhlane COVID-19 ngemnyaka wa 2021.
President Joe Biden's early days in office were marked by a grim victory for the virus. In the first week of his term, the U.S. reached 25 million cases of COVID-19, continuing the country's dubious distinction as leading in global cases and deaths. In February, the U.S. hit 500,000 COVID-19 deaths. In April, the world hit 5 million deaths. And then, just as Americans began to vaccinate en masse, and much of the world was still waiting, the highly infectious Delta variant hit. Biden has had to balance his responsibility to his citizenry with what he says is a moral obligation of the world's wealthiest nation to the rest of the planet. In June, more than 6 months after Americans began, the U.S. began sending out millions of vaccine donations to lower and lower middle-income nations. By September, Biden described the U.S. as the world's arsenal of vaccines, with pledges of more than 1 billion donated doses.
And the United States is leading the world on vaccination donations. We need, as we're doing that, we need other high-income countries to deliver on their own ambitious vaccine donations and pledges. That's why today we're launching the EU-US vaccine partnership to work more closely together and with our partners and expanding global vaccinations.
Critics say the world's richest nation can afford to do more. Some question why wealthy nations stockpiled millions of extra vaccine doses and why their citizens are getting booster shots when many around the world have yet to receive a first dose.
What they have done very well is they have committed more vaccines to countries that need them. They have committed more funding to institutions to help deliver those vaccines and for the PPE and other responses that are needed. They have supported sharing intellectual property. They have supported increased manufacturing in developing countries. They have used their leadership by example to good effect.
And Dr. Tyson Bell says Biden gets a good grade for his efforts. But there's plenty of room for improvement next year, he said.
There are a few things that we need to do a better job of. And we still have continents like Africa that are at 10% fully vaccinated. There's no explanation for that and no defense. And then the third, really is laying the groundwork for our future response, making sure that we have a well-funded public health infrastructure, that we have rapid response capability, that we have the ability to implement testing, and that we can separate the concept of public health from the politics that inevitably gets caught up in.
but hard worker. And as the new variants have shown, it is adaptable. That means it might be around for a while yet.
I think COVID's going to be with us. What we have to do is get it to a point where it's not overwhelming hospitals. We have low hospitalizations. We have, a manageable amount of deaths year to year. Sad to say it that way, but we need to be able to manage it.
The best way to get there and one he very publicly followed in September by getting his third shot.
Kanti eNingizimu Afrika kusuka umlilo lomkhulu ePhalamende eCape Town ngelisonto kuboshwe komsolwa lekubheke ukuthi avele enkantolo namuhla.
Flames consumed the National Assembly of South Africa's Parliament in Cape Town. The fire started around 5 a.m. local time in the 19th century wing of the building were parts. Despite the speedy deployment of dozens of firefighters, the damage was extensive. The roof of the lower house of Parliament was completely destroyed.
Unfortunately, it has now affected the assembly chambers as well, and very significant damage to the roof of that structure. What we can tell you is that the fire detection system was delayed in its response. That much we know for so far.
A team was put in place to protect South African President Cyril Ramaphosa's Cape Town office, which is very close to the Parliament. The President said the fire was a devastating event.
I believe somebody is being held right now and they are being questioned, but we need to go a lot deeper into how this type of event can take place.
The 51-year-old man was arrested inside the Parliament complex. He's to appear in court on Tuesday. The fire destroyed a part of South Africa's history. The oldest wing of Parliament was completed in 1884. Here, the key steps that brought an end to apartheid took place, culminating in the investiture of Nelson Mandela in 1994. No injuries have been reported from Sunday's fire. The full extent of the damage is still being assessed.
Kanti eveni lase-Sudan Prime Minister wakhona ubeke ematomu ngelisonto umemeteleke lokhu kumabonakude kulela live kuchubeka ama pro-democracy protest.
After months of violence on the streets and uncertainty over his position, Sudan's Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok announced his resignation on Sunday.
أنني قد قررت أن أرد إليكم أمانتكم وأعلن لكم استقالتي من منصب رئيس الوزراء مفسحا المجال لآخر من بنات أو أبناء هذا الوطن المعطاء لاستكمال قيادة وطننا العزيز.
Hamdok was sworn in 2019, becoming Sudan's first civilian prime minister. But in October, an army coup saw Hamdok detained by the army, later to be reinstated. His release and pact with the army did not convince protesters that there will be a transition to full democracy. Since then, protests against the army takeover have shown no signs of abating. An army crackdown on demonstrations has resulted in dozens of people killed and hundreds injured. Protest organizers say 2022 will be the year of continued resistance.
We completely condemn powers such as arrest, search and arbitrary arrest. This is the last card used by the ruling council because they fear our freedom. Arrests will never break our resistance committees. They will arrest us, but we will not give up until we achieve civilian rule.
Coup leader General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan said on Saturday that Sudan faced existential threats that could not be ignored.
Individuals with authority, along with the current conflict which has resulted in loss of life, damage to property and disruption, mean we have to arbitrate the voice of reason and agree to dialogue.
Protesters say that the military must play no role in government on the road to free elections.
Eveni laseGhana tindzawo letisemakhaya eGhana tibhekene netinkinga letifaka ekhatsi soil erosion kanye netinkinga tekuba netimvula letinemandla floods.
The RC primary school lays in ruins after what authorities say in November was the largest tidal wave to ever hit Ghana's eastern coast. It was the third relocation of the school further inland after two previous ones were completely submerged along with the Fuvema fishing community. No matter how many times the villagers moved further from the shore, flooding and coastal erosion have brought it right back.
So it started in 1997 and it did not destroy all the land. It destroyed part of it. And in 2016, it also destroyed part of it again. And in 2018, then it destroyed all the land at Fuvema. So you can't see anybody at Fuvema now. So these are the village near to the Fuvema, which is now being destroyed by the sea again.
The once thriving fishing village of 2,500 people has been reduced to a few. The United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO study, says 37% of Ghana's eastern coastal land was lost from erosion and flooding between 2005 and 2017. Authorities blame rising seas from climate change as well as human activities, such as building dams and ports and harvesting sand from beaches to sell for use in construction.
So as the chairman of the MISEC, the Municipal Security Council, we held a meeting and we came out with an order, the fetching of the sand from the beaches until further notice.
In a meeting with authorities, Fuvema villagers said the ban was not enough. They called for building a sea defense wall, as has been done on some other areas of the coast.
The whole shore of Ghana, from Axim to Aflau, that protection needs to be done, because if we protect one particular place and leave the others, the devastation will continue.
While all coastal West Africa suffers from erosion, Ghanaian experts say their country's long coastline, almost 550 kilometers, makes it most vulnerable. The University of Cape Coast Center for Coastal Management says every year, Ghana loses an average of 2 meters of land to the sea.
Uhulumende welive lasemelika ubonakala kwangathi ufuna kuqinisa budlelwane emkhathini kwelive lasemelika kanye nelive lase-Taiwan.
Republican and Democratic senators visiting Taiwan in June, just one of the trips by lawmakers signaling support for a self-ruled democracy. Since that visit, the U.S. and Taiwan have held more trade and investment talks. Taiwan already is one of America's top 10 largest trading partners, and officials are seeking even closer economic ties.
We discussed a number of items that are important to both the U.S. and to Taiwan. Supply chain issues, economic coercion, science and technology exchanges, things that we can do to try and deepen our people-to-people relations, as well as to deepen our economic partnership.
Taiwan is home to the world's largest contract chipmaker, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC. Many link the survival of Taiwan's democracy to U.S. supply chain security.
Taiwan has a free and open market. It's got a democratic political system. It's a very good business climate. And so in that sense, having a free and democratic Taiwan is critically important for the U.S. economically, and it's important more broadly for U.S. supply chain security as well.
After a virtual meeting between U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping, the Biden administration invited Taiwan to participate in the Summit for Democracy, drawing a sharp rejection from China.
What the U.S. did proves that its so-called democracy is just a pretext and a tool for it to pursue its geopolitical goals, suppress other countries, divide the world, serve its own interests, and maintain its hegemony in the world.
Beijing claims sovereignty over Taiwan. Taipei considers the island a sovereign state. So far, analysts say the Biden administration's positions mirror long-standing U.S. policy.
The U.S. can recognize Taiwan as a democracy, but at the same time, it can uphold the one China policy. The Biden administration, as well as the Trump administration before it, have emphasized and also the U.S.'s position on Taiwan, but also the Taiwan Relations Act and the Six Assurances.
In the face of continuing threats from China, Taiwan has increased its defense capabilities. The U.S. is also continuing arms sales to Taiwan under the Taiwan Relations Act, after switching diplomatic recognition from Taiwan to China in 1979. White House Jack Sullivan said the U.S. is taking every action of both deterrence and diplomacy to make sure the scenario that China uses force to unify Taiwan never happens.
Live lase-India lihlangabetane netinkinga letiningi eminyakeni wa 2021 ikakhulukazi leto tekuphepha security.
The most serious confrontation between India and China in decades ended in February when they withdrew troops from a disputed border stretch in Ladakh. But the India-China frontier remains a dangerous flashpoint as talks to resolve differences at other contested points in the Himalayas have hit a stalemate.
Both sides have reinforced their positions. In fact, China has been amassing troops quite significantly, building semi-permanent structures and making a show of force along that long boundary with India.
India, which had long focused on rival Pakistan, is now preparing to meet the security challenge from its much bigger neighbour. It is building roads and tunnels to move troops and weapons faster along the China border. Prime Minister Narendra Modi participated in 2 summit meetings this year with the United States, Japan and Australia to firm up a strategic grouping called the Quad, meant to counter China.
That's a challenge that India has woken up in ways that are quite dramatic. But I think that was happening even before the present crisis happened. And now, of course, India is responding in kind. We have seen India not only ratcheting up its troop presence along the border, but also taking some important decisions like formalizing Quad.
Domestic crises also challenged Modi. A deadly second wave of the coronavirus pandemic, fueled by the Delta variant, sickened or killed millions in the summer, just months after Modi had virtually declared victory against the virus. His government floundered to cope.
And you had oxygen shortages, hospitals overwhelmed, and this very tragic sight of bodies awash the river Ganges, which people will take a long time to forget. So given that, yes, he did come in for criticism.
Thousands of farmers who camped on roads around New Delhi to lead a year-long protest against market-friendly reforms won a huge victory when Modi scrapped the laws. It was a rare concession by a leader who has seldom tolerated a challenge to his authority during his 7-year rule.
We are so glad that Modi repealed the laws. We are going home very happy.
The sheen on India's strongest leader in decades has worn off, say analysts, especially as millions of poor people deal with the economic devastation caused by the pandemic.
Apart from, the COVID mishandling, certainly livelihoods, lack of jobs, economic distress, families pulling out their children, child marriage on the increase because, parents can't look after them. I think we haven't felt yet, the enormity of what has happened during 2021.
Coping with a more assertive China and addressing economic distress will continue to challenge India.
5 minutes before 8 o'clock, sithi phetha lapho ke tindzaba lethamba imbili kulamanye emava sibahlole timakethe sitabuya sivale lihlelo.
You do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds full of wonder. You choose a path of
First lo mhla ekuseni loluhle busisikile